Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar of September 2020. And thank you so much for joining us for the webinar, 5 Steps to Optimize Your LinkedIn Profile for Recruiter Searches. My name is Helen Kim, and I go by the pronoun she, her, hers. And I manage the Northwestern Alumni Association's career webinar series. So before we invite Anna Kate to start, I have some housekeeping rules for today's presentation. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there are a few different tabs. The first tab is the chat tab. So you've seen that we've already been interacting on there already. So when you guys enter, just share with us where you're tuning in from. In the chat tab, just throw it in the chat below. So that is where you can talk to one another respectfully or chat with me privately if you need to. So that is available. And then the second tab is the Q&A tab where you can send in your questions. So we'll have time at the end of the presentation to go over all the questions, but if you have any right now or throughout the webinar, just submit them there and I will look over them and then publish them. So one cool thing about the Q&A tab is that when you upload it, and when you're looking at the list of questions and there are some questions that you want to hear answers from more than others, you can upvote it. So what I'll do later is I'm going to look at the ones with the most upvotes and try to go over those first. And then we're going to do our very best to go over every single question. Depends on the time though, but we'll do our very best. And if you experience any technical issues during the webinar, you can email the Big Marker team at support@bigmarker.com. And I'll throw that email address in the sticky note too as soon as I'm done. And then last but not least, a link to access the recording will be sent to your inbox, whichever email that you signed up to attend this webinar with, it'll go right to that inbox with the link to access the slide deck from today by Anna Kate. So let me introduce you to Anna Kate. So Anna Kate Anderson is an experienced resume writer, career coach, and job search strategist in Evanston, Illinois. She loves that LinkedIn has leveled the playing field for networking and completed a national certification for online profile experts in 2019. She writes targeted resumes, helps clients get recruited via LinkedIn, and teaches networking through relationship building. Anna Kate, thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Helen. I am so excited to be here. Just like Helen said, so I am a resume writer. I write LinkedIn profiles. I help people with job search strategy, and I am right here in Evanston with Northwestern and just could never leave after doing my master's degree in literature at Northwestern a decade ago. So I am really excited to be here with all of you to talk to you about 5 steps to optimize your LinkedIn profile for recruiter searches. So I also wanted you guys to know that I'm also excited to have a break from virtual kindergarten, which is how I'm spending most of my mornings these days now with my 5-year-old in virtual kindergarten. So that has been an interesting change to my days in the last few days. So, what I love to do is to help people convey their strengths through their LinkedIn profile. And that's what LinkedIn is for. It's a place for you to convey your strengths and your expertise and to have sort of a living place where you can talk about your career wins and highlights what you want to do. So Helen, if you'll go ahead and put up poll question 1, that would be great. So first, we're going to talk about why should you even be on LinkedIn, right? Why be on LinkedIn? So you'll see some statistics right here, and you will see me glance over at my notes. And that is not because I'm not prepared, it is because I don't want to forget anything, and there's so much information to share with you. So, why be on LinkedIn? Yes, there are so many people on LinkedIn. The bottom line is that, it's a way, again, to have an active live profile that you can change as much as you want. And of course, it's a great way to network, right? So today we're going to be focused on the profile. But another thing to understand about LinkedIn is how it really makes networking really easy and how you can move from one job to another, figure out your career path, check out other people who are in those career paths that you want to be on, and really learn more about an industry, a role, anything you want. So one thing I wanted you to note from these statistics, and I promise not to read from the slides, is that even though there are 640 million LinkedIn users worldwide, and that number is probably bigger than when I pulled that statistic, there are only 260 million active monthly users. And if you're on LinkedIn a lot like me, what you will notice is that in your feed, which the LinkedIn feed works just like Facebook, that even if you have tons of contacts, which I think I have 1,000, which is really not that many, you see the same people posting a lot. So even though we're going to be focused on the profile today, one thing I want you to walk away with today is that it is important to be active on LinkedIn. That can be 10 or 15 minutes a week. You don't even have to post things yourself. You can comment on other people's posts, but being active on LinkedIn will really help you to show up higher in searches, to just, have more contacts, for people to go and view your profile page more often. So don't create a great profile based on this webinar and then never log into LinkedIn again, right? Because then it's just a static profile. You need to be a little bit active on there if you really want to see results. Okay. And this was a little bit of information because I'm sure that we have some business owners on here today who are doing hiring through LinkedIn, who are, finding clients through LinkedIn, who are advertising on LinkedIn. And it's, again, it's a really great place to be individually when you're looking for a job, but it's also a great place to be if you have a service or a product. And if LinkedIn is not part of your social media business development plan, it really should be. I know it sounds like I work for LinkedIn, and I don't. I just love it that much. And just like Helen said, I do think that it can really level the playing field for networking when you have the right tools and a great profile. And so that's why I'm here, is to help you with those tools. Okay, so let's get started. What are the most important sections of the profile? These are based on my education becoming a nationally certified online profile expert, which was with a recruiter on LinkedIn. I want to be really clear that I am not a recruiter, but I have written hundreds of profiles. I've worked with many executives, and this is what I have found works. And they are most of the heaviest weighted places. So what we're going to be going over today, the sections that we're going to be talking about, and I'm going to give you lots of tips and tricks for how to make sure that these are dynamic, are your headline, which is like your title on LinkedIn, your profile photo, so important and so easy to get right. The about or summary section, your professional experience section, which is most like your resume, and your skills section. All right, so the headline. So Helen, do you want to put up poll question 2?
Yes, I'll do that right now. But Anna Kate,
yeah,
the responses from the first question or first poll question, I just want to update you. So people check their LinkedIn daily. We got that as the first, like the most voted answer. And then there was a tie between 3 to 4 times and 1 to 4 times a week. And then monthly came in last.
Okay, great. So that's great to know that you guys are on LinkedIn a lot. The next question is about jobs. So it's about whether you're applying for jobs through LinkedIn. And so of course it's, even more important to have a great LinkedIn profile if you're applying to jobs through LinkedIn. So Helen, feel free to interrupt me with the results. But let's go over the headline because I do want to get through this so that we can take questions, which is my favorite part. So your headline on LinkedIn, the sort of auto-populated headline on LinkedIn is going to be your title from your most recent position. And that's fine. But it doesn't really tell a recruiter or anyone who's using search terms to find you. They're not looking for you specifically. They're looking for someone with your skills. It doesn't really tell them a lot. And the headline is the most weighted part, the heaviest weighted part of your profile. So it's important to get it right. Sort of the best practice on LinkedIn right now, and I say sort of because there's a couple different ways to do it, is to use your headline, use those 120 characters to really convey your strengths, your expertise, what you are really great at. So you'll see in this example that we've moved from just a few words to many words. I always use marketing as an example because marketing has so many very specific terms. And so especially if you're in a role that has all this specific language and specific terms, you need to be really specific with what you are great at because you want to be found for what you want next. And I'm going to keep hitting that point as we talk. But one thing that's really important on LinkedIn is to not just make your profile about what you're great at and your expertise, but to draw recruiters in for what you want. Right. And so we're always having integrity, being honest about what our strengths are, but you're also making sure that you hit those things that you want. So for example, I helped someone recently move from a sales role to a project manager role. Did not want to be commission-based anymore. And we did that through showing how she managed projects while she was doing her sales role. We still talked about the sales highlights, but in the title, you say project manager. If you've managed projects, you're a project manager, right? Okay. So that's one way to point the headline towards what you want. So the third little blurb here that's kind of in mustard yellow, you can also use an I statement. Lots of people do this. I think it's really dynamic. You will see a lot of just headlines with all capital letters and things like that. But you need to think about a recruiter who's seeing a lot of these at one time. Think about your audience, right? So you can use an I statement to talk about the impact you make and the value that you have for your company. One good thing to know is that LinkedIn is rolling out longer headlines right now. And so you may have more characters than 120. You may have a double headline. And what's really funny is they roll these things out randomly, but I got the longer headline and I was so excited. And then I updated my headline on my mobile and I was knocked back to 120 characters. So sometimes that happens. That's just the way LinkedIn is. But that is how to have a dynamic headline. Here are some terms to not use in your headline, and I'm going to talk about these. So if you have this in your headline, don't worry. It's not the biggest deal. I'm just giving you what is going to be more effective. So there's nothing inherently wrong with these terms. The reason you shouldn't use them is that recruiters are not searching for these terms, right? If you're looking for a job, if you want more profile views, you are wasting space and wasting real estate of your 120 characters, which is really not that much, with terms like these. So the other thing to understand is that when you do a search on LinkedIn, and that search is just your network on LinkedIn, which includes your first, second, and third contacts. So when I searched these terms on LinkedIn, 3 million users had seeking in their profile. 7 million had open to. And obviously, it's a dire time. It's, lots of people are looking for work. But what I'm here to tell you about is how to help yourself. Because this is not, again, not what people are looking for. Student, 54 million. Now, student isn't a bad term. What I would rather see is studying XYZ. So having, a verb instead of a noun and telling, the recruiter or whoever actually what you're studying. Recent graduate isn't so bad. There were 925,000 profiles when I searched it with recent graduate in the title. But what I would rather see is, MBA 2019, Kellogg MBA 2019, something like that, instead of just recent graduate. And so here are some examples of headlines that I came across that I just thought were dynamic and great and show you people's strengths and expertise. So you can check those out, later when you go through the slides. But there's I statements. There are key terms. There are titles, and then what people are passionate about. And that is really important too. So let's move on to the second most important item: your photo. It's so important to have a great photo on LinkedIn. What does that mean? All that means, so you'll see this, statistic, they get 21 times more profile views. That's huge. So don't leave your photo off. You can take it as a selfie if you need to, that's fine. Have a clear background, be in professional dress, have it just be your head or your head and your shoulders. And then there's also a background photo on LinkedIn. It's a blue banner unless you change it, but this is an opportunity to brand yourself. So it's an opportunity to, tell somebody something about you. A cityscape is fine, but what I love to see are pictures of people in action from pre-COVID, when you were in a meeting, speaking, when you were talking with a client. A picture of you is really great if you have it. And if not, I've offered you some places where you can get free, really great high definition pictures to use as your background photo. So use that to continue to brand yourself. And, it's just, when someone goes to your page and sees it, what is the immediate, idea that you want them to get, right? Oh, and I do see a lot of headshots with, other people, other things in them. So, my advice is always to not have a dog in your picture unless you are a veterinarian or a dog walker, and to not have your child in your picture unless you are a pediatrician or, run a daycare, something like that. Just focus it on you, because, LinkedIn is the professional social media site. Again, people do this. People, do this with, don't listen to that and have great success. That I'm just giving you what I think is the best practice, especially when you want to be contacted by recruiters. Be you. The bottom line is to be you. Okay. So the next section is the summary section. And this is just a blank section where you have either 2,000 or 2,600 characters. Again, they're rolling out longer summaries for some people. The summary is the section where you can really be you, bring some of your personality. It should be branded, what makes you unique. It should be engaging. It should definitely be written in first person. You do want to be wary of being too personal when you're job searching. So you will see people who are influencers and things like that with lots of really super personal information. But you want to, my best advice is to hold a little bit of that back while you're job searching. So, be you, and tell your story, but just be aware that, LinkedIn is a public site. So questions that I like to ask clients when we are, figuring out what should go in the summary, what do you offer? What special, unique things do you bring to the table? I have a proprietary questionnaire, that helps me to unearth some of these strengths in your personality. How do you motivate your team? If you're an independent contributor, what impact have you had at your company or organization? If you're mid-career or beyond and you're wanting to move up that ladder, it's important to talk about your leadership, right? So I have a few examples of summaries that I think are helpful. We're about halfway through, just FYI. So I write summaries in a lot of different ways, but a good template to use is sort of to have an I statement about you and your career, what you're great at, what you've done, like a cohesive career summary, to do some highlights or accomplishments. And for this person, because again, they were in marketing, we wanted to make sure some of these key terms were used. And so we used an additional expertise section so that we would be able to hit all those keywords. Now, you don't want to keyword stuff. Like, don't, copy 50 words and just stuff them in your about section, because somebody's going to know that that's what you're doing. And again, this is somebody with over 20 years of experience, right? So, but definitely be sure to put in the keywords that make sense for you and for what you're looking for. Another summary, again, an I statement with some wins. Anything you have that's quantifiable is awesome. Get that into the about section. It's fine if it repeats in your professional experience section. With this person, what we targeted was some leadership qualities and then giving specific instances of those leadership qualities. So that is a way to do a great summary. All right, let's move on to professional experience. So that is the fourth, this is going to be the fourth, 4 out of 5 that we're talking about today. And Helen, if you want to put up the next poll, that would be great.
Yes, I'll do that right now.
Oh, great. And so I see the results from the last one. So 57% of people have applied for jobs on LinkedIn and 43% haven't. So once you have a great, profile, you'll feel more confident applying through LinkedIn. And it is really a great way to apply. And I'll show you with some bonus content I have for you guys. So let's go back to the professional experience section. So you can copy that from your resume as long as your resume is great. You know, if you don't feel like your resume is great, what you need to include in those professional experience sections are, you know, what did you do day in and day out? What were your responsibilities, your duties, and then what was the impact you had? So accomplishments, changes you made, hurdles you overcame, you know, what did you do for that organization while you were there? It's great not to list anything before 2000, unless you started somewhere like you started 1995 and you were there till 2007. Go ahead and leave that in. I also, you know, have said not to list internships if you're 5 to 10 years out of school. So, you know, obviously there are exceptions to all of these. If you interned at Amazon and you want to go back there, definitely include that on there because they know that you've been there. So there's an example of yes, still include it. But in general, you want to focus really on your full-time professional experience. I do actually work with a lot of people in healthcare, including doctors and nurses. And so, you know, obviously if you have, if you've, you know, been in a residency or things like that, you will still include that for a while. Use the space, don't leave the description blank. So you will see a lot of profiles where it just lists the job title. You're missing out on keywords, on recruiters finding you for what you've done, and especially on keyword density, because you're going to be using the same words that you used in your about section, but you're going to have them, you know, hit more often on your profile. So definitely fill out that professional experience section. And the last section to talk about is skills. So what we want, I see that 77% of you have been contacted by a recruiter on LinkedIn. That's awesome. So a follow-up to that question is, are you being contacted by recruiters for the jobs that you want? And that's a good question to ask yourself because that will tell you if you're pointing your profile in the right direction. So show, you know, make sure to think about what you're getting contacted for. So the final section that is really important, and you know, less important than the other ones, but important nonetheless, is your skills section. And so over the last year or so, I guess, LinkedIn rolled out, you know, you can have 50 skills listed, and that's great. So the most important thing with skills is that you want them to be relevant to the jobs that you are looking for now, to your career now. I cannot tell you how many people I work with who their skills are from, you know, a long time ago, and they're not even in the same role, the same industry. So really check on that because you want to be sure that you're listing what you what you're great at, of course, it's your skill section, and what you want to be found for. So I also have here, use the predictive text when you're entering in new skills. So when you click add new skill, it's going to pull up a box and you can start typing, but there's predictive text and it will pull up skills. Use those terms that get pulled up. The reason why is because people often misspell something and then it's not going to show up, then it's not going to be pulled up in a search. And then the other thing is that sometimes people give like a long phrase about a skill. And if you do that and it's not part of the skills list that LinkedIn has, which is like, probably millions of terms, it'll get bumped down to your other skills. And it's just less likely to be something that a recruiter is searching for. So your top 3 skills, LinkedIn automatically makes those the ones that you have the most endorsements for. But what you want to do is choose the top 3 that most represent you, your number 1 skills. Think about differentiating yourself. Is it marketing or is it marketing strategy? Is it marketing or is it digital marketing? Sorry to keep using marketing as an example. Is it, I also work with a lot of public health people. I worked at the UIC School of Public Health for 10 years. So, is it public health or is it population health? Things like that will really help you differentiate yourself from other people. Another reason that it's really important to choose the top 3 is that if recruiters decide to download your LinkedIn profile to a PDF, which, anybody who can view your profile can do that. Only your top 3 skills will show up. So again, that is really important. Okay, so those were the top 5 ways to improve your profile. I hope everybody learned something maybe, or had just what they knew confirmed. I have a couple of little bonuses for you for attending the webinar. And these are, bits of information that I share with my clients to help them network to their next role. And it's much easier these days to network to your next role rather than to just be dropping your resume into the black hole of applications. So the first one is about recommendations. And I do see that, 67% of people answered yes, you use LinkedIn to network. That is wonderful. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. So recommendations are so great on LinkedIn. Why? Because they're verifiable. Because you can click on the profile of the person who gave you the recommendation. So what I suggest to clients is that they ask for short recommendations based on a specific product, service, or skill. And that you get, a diversity, like diverse recommendations, meaning, from bosses, from colleagues, from really, anyone who will, can talk accurately about your skills and strengths. So that is some information about recommendations. And recruiters love to see recommendations. So the recruiters that I know do trust recommendations, especially when they are recent. So a lot of people, like when they first got on LinkedIn, got some recommendations, but haven't had many in years. So it's great to go ahead and request recommendations. Is it going to make or break you? No. I also talk to clients who, unfortunately, they are not allowed to have recommendations from people at their same company. So, something to think about when you leave a company is to get recommendations from those people after you leave. All right, final bonus. This is it, and then we'll take questions. But I think that one thing, the one thing that I would love for people to understand about LinkedIn the most, and the way that I do feel like LinkedIn can help make the job search more equitable, is through networking through company pages. So when you decide that you want to apply for a role, one of the first things you should do is go to the company page on LinkedIn. And so this is an example of Google. So they are going to show you immediately who you're connected to. See that in the red circle? I'm sure you see it, right? So I know immediately, oh my gosh, I'm connected to someone who works there. So I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, Kim, how are you? How have you been? I wanted to let you know I'm applying for this role. This is why I think I'm, the best person for this position. Is there, anything you think I should do? Or is there anyone you could pass my resume to? And that's not something bad to ask. People ask that all the time. And this is how people network to their next role. So if you don't have a first level connection with someone who is in the company where you're applying, you're going to see all 213,000 employees. Now, listen, I'm not going to have you go through 200,000 employees. Don't worry about that. When you click on that link, it will bring up all the employees. And what you're going to do is go to the search section, click on connections. You don't have any first level connections, so don't worry about that. But you probably do have second level connections if you've built up, 500 or so connections on LinkedIn. Click on second connections. It's going to give you a list of people, and then you're going to see who is connected to that person and how you can get to that person in that company. So you're going to reach out to your friend, Helen, and say, Helen, I see that you're connected with so-and-so who works at X company, and is there, would you mind, I'm really interested in this position. It should be someone who is a little bit connected to that role or department or, what they're doing. But you can absolutely, ask someone to help you get connected there. So that was my last job search tip. And, I absolutely love working with people to help them move on in their job search, to make sure that they feel really confident with their job search documents, with their LinkedIn profile, and starting to network to that next role. So I am ready to turn it back over to you, Helen, for the Q&A.
In the published, you will see a long list of questions. So are you ready?
Yes.
Alrighty, so we're gonna try to get through as many as we can before we end our presentation. But folks, feel free to send in more questions. I'm gonna do my best to moderate this and then look at all the questions that are coming in. Keep voting so I know which questions you want me to ask Anna Kate and go over those. All right, so first question. Is it better to apply directly to a job you found on LinkedIn or to apply through LinkedIn?
So apply directly, meaning apply through the company page. You can do both. Once you update your LinkedIn profile, I think it is really nice to apply through LinkedIn. The other bonus that you have doing that is that you may be able to see the hiring manager or recruiter. They're often listed with the application, with the job description on LinkedIn, and that way you have a way to follow up. So, I advise people to do both, really, if you're really serious about, you really want a job and feel like it's, a great opportunity for you.
Great, thank you. Next question is, you can tailor traditional resumes to your audience, but your LinkedIn profile is a one-size-fits-all. What is the best way of managing this?
So that is a great point. And you can also really only have one LinkedIn profile. Like, it doesn't make sense to have multiple profiles because that would just confuse a recruiter. So, absolutely, there are people who have sort of a 50-50 split and can equally want to go in one direction or another. And there's nothing wrong with that. So what I advise about the LinkedIn profile, first of all, you're absolutely right. The great thing about the resume still is that you can tweak it to every position, right? And that's not something you can do when you apply on LinkedIn. But I think that everyone these days understands that people have multiple interests. So I wouldn't want someone to be all over the place, with what they're interested in and what they're targeting. But if you're targeting two things, I think that's fine. And so what I would do is, especially in the about section, you would want to, show exactly why you have expertise in both of those areas. You can also talk about, my career was XYZ up to now, and now I'm moving into, ABC. Even if you haven't made that step yet, you're on your way. And so you're talking about, what you want next.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Going on to the next question. Should you include dates of employment? And then Joanne said she is approaching 60 years of age.
Sure. So I wouldn't include, like I said, I wouldn't include anything before 2000. So I would include your last 20 years of experience. And, another thing to understand about LinkedIn is, it's always important to be honest and have integrity, but that doesn't mean that you have to list every single thing that you ever did. And that includes positions that you may have, left quickly. I had a job that was a very bad fit for me from day one. That I just did not understand that before I took the position. And I was there for like 3 or 4 months, and I would never include that on a resume. Or my LinkedIn profile, and everybody makes mistakes like that. So, a 3, 4, 5 month gap, kind of up to 6 months is fine. But again, yes, as for older, career people, you do need to be aware of ageism, and I wouldn't include anything before 2000 again, unless it straddles the year 2000, and that's fine. And yes, don't include, actually, LinkedIn just moved to not showing dates for education. I just noticed that last week, but I haven't seen any actual update about it. But I also wouldn't include dates for your degrees if you're in, if you graduated in the 70s or 80s, basically.
And then kind of as a follow-up question from that, so we got multiple questions from people who are saying that they either had to leave or couldn't work after 2000s due to medical issues, or they were staying at home with their families. How would you explain that, and how would you, put that on your LinkedIn profile? Like,
sure.
So Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead. So be very honest. That is absolutely fine. And it is, it's wonderful that you were, not if you were sick, that's not wonderful, but if you're taking care of someone, that's absolutely, a great way to have been spending your time. I just worked with someone, who was in healthcare, was an executive, and then left that role to take care of an elderly aunt for many, many years. And so getting back into the workforce is difficult, but you especially if it spans years, you do just want to be honest about that time. And then, something that I do when I work with people is, really think about, you have many skills from doing things like that. You have project management skills, you have customer service skills, you have networking skills, relationship building skills, vendor management. There's a lot that goes into taking care of someone. And so many of those skills are transferable, and just talk about it in a professional way. Talk about what you did in a professional way and make it a section of experience on your LinkedIn profile. If an employer has a problem with that, you don't want to be there anyway.
Great, thank you. And folks, just a reminder. I think there's a little bit of an echo. Just a reminder, please ask the questions in the Q&A tab. I might not see your questions if you type it in the chat, so I apologize if I missed yours, but do put it in the Q&A tab so I can keep track of them. Okay, so moving on to the next one. Anna Kate, can you please comment on the new open to work tag in LinkedIn?
Absolutely. So I think I just recently wrote a post about this. I think it's fine to do the circle thing around your profile picture. I do see a lot of those. And for me, as someone who's not a recruiter, it's jarring to see so many of those and to understand how many people are unemployed right now. And it's hard. It's a really hard time. And I absolutely understand that some of you, who are here are having a really tough time. When you do the hashtag open to work post, my number one thing is include your location. Because when you see those posts in your feed, or if someone is searching the hashtag open to work, which I have absolutely done to just help random people with their profiles, even though people who can work virtually are working virtually right now, it still helps to give your location for recruiters. You're helping them to not make an extra click. So, it just helps recruiters. So when you're posting something with the open to work, and then the other thing I've seen is that LinkedIn auto populates that for you. And a lot of people just use that auto populate. But if you see many of those, you see that it's the same language over and over again. So you can leave that language in, but add extra, information about your strengths and skills. And, that is what those posts have got to be focused on: your strengths, your skills, your impact, your value.
Great. And then moving on to the next question. How do you emphasize you're looking for a specific career pivot if we shouldn't use seeking or open to?
So if you're looking for a career pivot, I would talk about what I would, suggest would be to talk about, if you're asking about the headline, to give the skills and expertise that you have, and then say, moving into, XYZ, or just use a little arrow emoji. I don't like a ton of emojis. Keep it professional, but you can use an arrow to show that you're moving into that. Open to doesn't tell anyone that you're actively pursuing something, that you're learning about it, that you're doing webinars, that you're, doing courses online, that you're pursuing a degree in that you're, doing informational interviews, that you have transferable skills. Open to is a really passive phrase. So you want to say, I'm, pursuing this. I'm going after this. This is my next move. I'm going to be really successful moving on to this. So be confident.
Great. Thank you. And then the next one was asked after you talked about the second point, which is photos. So this question is, there's so much unconscious and implicit bias that I purposely don't use a photo. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously that is a huge problem. But with LinkedIn, I think that you're better off using a photo no matter what. And that's just because so it's for two reasons. One, because it's a verifiable thing. It's just, you are who you say you are. And then two, because there are more and more and more sort of bot accounts on LinkedIn, and fake accounts. And I think we're only going to see more of that unless they do like a huge crackdown. So I really think that any photo is better than no photo. And I will say, with bias, I think that is incredibly important. And it's something that I talk to my clients about. And I never suggest that someone use a photo on the resume. So I don't use photos on resumes. And that is why, because I do think that resumes, that because of bias, no one should be using a photo on their resume. Lots of people in Europe with CVs use them, and that's just kind of a common practice. But that's part of how I handle that with clients.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then next one is, it has been recommended to me that I include my email address in the summary section. That way recruiters and also LinkedIn contacts can reach me directly, since LinkedIn's messaging platform is a little bit clunky. What are your thoughts on including email addresses?
Absolutely. Include it. You also have a contact section so people can contact you through there. You probably will get more people reaching out to you with the LinkedIn messaging anyway. I do think that that's frustrating. It's especially frustrating for me because I can't put an out of office on the LinkedIn messaging. So I feel really bad when I can't get back to people within 24 hours and they don't know why. But yeah, I think putting your email as many places as you want is great. You can also get a Google Voice number. So if you don't want to share your cell phone number, you can get a Google Voice number if you want to have a number that people can immediately reach out to you for. I have used that, and I really haven't gotten too much spam stuff from that. So, I mean, maybe other people have, but I haven't.
Awesome. Thank you. And then next question is, what is the etiquette for connecting with people? If I've had a networking call with someone, should I send a LinkedIn request?
Absolutely. So first, send a thank you. If you requested the call, thank you so much. I learned XYZ and I really appreciate your time. I tell people if they're doing informational interviews or trying to ask people about what they do, in their role, to ask for a 15-minute call or Zoom or whatever. But yes, absolutely connect with people on LinkedIn. So you'll see people, who are really active and, other people aren't, but absolutely just keep growing your network in a sustainable way with people you can help and people who can help you.
Thank you. And then next question, I'm also curious about this. What are your thoughts on subscriptions to LinkedIn? Can you still take advantage of most features with a free account?
Yes. So yeah, so the premium account will help you. I think it's $60 a month. And recruiter accounts start at $120 a month. There are 1 million recruiter accounts on LinkedIn. So with the free LinkedIn account, anybody can find you. So don't worry about being found, certainly. It's really about reaching out to people. So that premium account will give you a certain number, I think it's 45 in-mail credits a month. And that way you can reach out to people who aren't in your network. So that means that people who are not a first, second, or third contact. In fact, I'm not sure if you can I don't think you can reach out to third level contacts when you have a free account. With a second level contact, you would just ask the first level contact to connect you, right? And somebody asked me a question, and out of curiosity, I checked how many second level contacts I have. And with about 1,000 connections, I have 980,000 second level connections. So start networking on LinkedIn.
That's a lot of people. But yes, that is a great answer. Next question is, what do you think about putting key search terms in a footer of your resume and hide the footer so that it will come up when recruiters search on these terms, but listing them will not use up space?
So, fun fact, a footer will not come up in ATS. Not all the time. So no, I think you should use those key search terms in your skills section, in your professional experience section, in a summary section at the top of your resume. There's no reason to. You should be able to get the terms you need onto your resume without having to hide it.
Great. And then, folks, we have 10 minutes left. We're going to keep going. I'm going to say any questions that are being asked starting now, there's a chance they won't get answered. So apologies, but you can connect with Anna Kate. Her information's up here on the slide, but we're going to move on with our next question. So if my work experience isn't stellar and have nothing to do with what I want to do now, how should I use that space?
Sure. So I would still include your work experience because it's important for recruiters to see that you were doing something rather than nothing, right? And by nothing, I don't mean, somebody who's staying at home with, taking care of somebody or whatever. I mean, actually doing nothing. So then I would create a professional experience section that is all about how you're pursuing what you want to do next. Right. So, you can make the title Pursuing XYZ in this industry, and talk about all the things that you're doing to pursue that position. That will help you with keywords. That will help you when you're reaching out to people to network so that they understand that's what you're interested in. And I do see a lot of people doing that now. And I think it's a great way to show what your next move is going to be.
Awesome. Thank you. And then next question, sorry, apologies. There's a lot of echo. Okay. There were a couple of questions regarding career transition. So the next one is, do you have recommendations about how to design a profile when you're attempting a career shift and don't have much experience in the new field?
Yes. So when you're wanting to do a career shift, you're going to talk about how your transferable skills will move over to that new passion that you have. So you're going to talk about, all your experience and expertise in what you've done so far. This is what I've done so far, and what I'm really passionate about now is, working in a museum. And, these are the skills that I can bring to that. One thing that I don't think people do enough of is really closely reading job descriptions, right? So when you're looking at jobs that you want, really closely read those descriptions to figure out what you've already done, how those skills can transfer into that role. And just be honest, I'm excited to learn this. These are the skills I have, these are the tools that I understand. I understand that XYZ software is important. So I'm taking a course through Coursera on this software, so I'll know it. Just talk about how you're going after it.
Great. Thank you so much. And then next question is, you emphasize how important it is to use all the keyword space. Is there not a disadvantage in having a cluttered full LinkedIn given how quickly recruiters skim through profiles?
So the reason to have a lot of keywords in your profile, in your headline, and to use all that space is because you want to catch all the searches that are for those terms. So if you really only have a couple of terms that you want to be found for, then it's fine to have a shorter headline, or particularly if you're not actively looking for a job, it's absolutely fine. If you want to be found, so your headline is about what you want to be found for, and for most people, they don't want to miss out on being found for a variety of skills and strengths.
Got it. Thank you. And the next one is, what should be the difference between the About section's highlights / accomplishments bullets and the resume portion bullets?
Sure, they can be the same. So you can repeat those. That's fine. Because, as the last person said, it's not like a recruiter they're not reading every single word that you've written. So if you have some of your highlights in the About section and then you repeat them in the professional experience section, that's fine. It means that the recruiter is more likely to pick up on them on one place or another. They're not going to say, why on earth have they repeated these great accomplishments in two places? That's not going to be something that they're concerned with. Another thing is that for people who are further along in their careers, putting your highlights from older positions in the accomplishment section is a great way to not connect them to the year that you did it.
Great. Thank you so much. Quick question about banner pictures. Won't having a banner picture showing people / yourself in action look busy right behind your profile pic? Seems like that would make it harder to see others, see either distinctively.
Sure. So, I think that's just a question of aesthetics. You can tell by my PowerPoint, I'm not I'm not great at aesthetics. So I think it's great, especially when I'm thinking of people like who are team leaders, who are executives, people who are coaches, people who have a business where they are in front of people, I guess less now these days, right? But it's definitely just up to you. So, I've often worked with like graphic design artists, people who are in product development, and they have a very specific idea about what their background photo should look like. So it absolutely is totally up to you, but just make sure that it says something about you, even if it's just a blank background that's a different color. I think changing it from the blue one that is just the auto one is great.
Awesome. Thank you. And then next question is it okay to highlight the fact that you're on a sabbatical as a new entry in professional experience, or just to not mention it at all?
I think that's fine. Absolutely. Yeah, it's fine.
Great. And then kind of like a follow-up question or a similar question. Is it a plus or a minus to include military service on your resume?
Oh, it's definitely a plus. Oh my gosh, the leadership and the skills that you get from military service. I mean, every employer, likes to see that. So I would absolutely include it. You don't have to include dates if it was so very long ago. And I often work with veterans and people who are transitioning out of the military. So yes, include it for sure.
Awesome. We have time for a couple more question, maybe 3 or 4. Does what you want have to align with your experience? For example, PhD in science wanting to jump to business consulting. What about having conflicting titles?
Sure. So the challenge is to figure out, how are they not conflicting? How are you going to bring what you learned in your PhD into business consulting? Right? So there has to be a segue. There has to be a transition. If you're going to two things that you feel really are not connected, then you need to, get some additional expertise, experience, take online courses, do whatever in order to make that leap. But I honestly think that you really can connect any previous experience to the next thing you want to do, because there's some reason that you got interested in doing that next role. And yeah, I mean, I think you really can connect it. Just think about what skills are you going to bring from what you've done into what you do next.
Awesome. Okay. Next question is, and then before I ask this, or as soon as I ask this, I'm going to hop off for a little bit, and then I'm going to come back in just due to my own technical difficulties. So apologies for that, folks. But Anna is going to answer this question. Do you recommend also sharing your resume on your LinkedIn profile? Bryn says they have issues with theirs being blurry that LinkedIn tech cannot fix, and it makes it look unprofessional.
Yes. So I'm saying, yes, you're right, that it can look unprofessional. So the best practice right now, and this has been up and down and up and down, and I'm in a Resume Writers Association and we debate this stuff and it's really fun. But right now the thinking is no, don't include your resume on your LinkedIn profile. One, because you're right, they don't have a great like PDF viewer really yet, and there's so many clicks you have to do to get to it. And then the other reason is because you can't tweak the resume to the position. So if a recruiter is looking at you for a certain role and your resume doesn't specifically speak to that role, whereas, if they reach out to you and say, oh, are you interested in this? And then you get to send them your resume, you can tweak it for the role before you send it. So, my advice is to not have the resume on LinkedIn right now.
Got you. Great advice. And then last question of today. how do you make it easy for people to recommend you on your skills in LinkedIn?
Sure. So for your endorsements, I think, it's not hugely important, but it is nice when you get those endorsements. But what I do is just endorse other people. So if you endorse someone, they will come back and endorse you 9 times out of 10. You can send a quick message and just say, hey, I endorsed you for your top skills today. Would you mind, endorsing me for mine, as long as you feel that you can. So, you can reach out to people and actually send them a quick message and ask, but if you endorse people, they will endorse you. And that would really be my last kind of comment is, when you help people, they will in turn help you. So, make sure that you're also offering help when you're asking for it.
And with that, that ends our Q&A and our presentation. Anna Kate, thank you so much. Is there one, I know you talked a lot, but is there one advice that you would like to share and leave us with?
Absolutely. Just be active on LinkedIn. Just, get on there 10 to 15 minutes, comment on other people's posts. Sharing an article, is always a great way to go. People love articles from Forbes, Harvard Business Review, Entrepreneur. There's just a lot of different things that you can share. Google one word about what you're interested in and come up with an article and share it. And just get started networking on LinkedIn, and you really will not believe the return that will come to you.
Well, thank you so much. You helped us a lot today, and we had so many folks on this webinar presentation. And I also want to thank all of you for attending this live webinar. It's been a joy to see you all again. And if you are new today, welcome. And we have so many more webinars coming up in September and throughout the end of the year. So thank you, Anna Kate. Everyone, I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes so you can see Anna Kate's information on here. But thank you, everyone. Stay safe, be well, and go Cats.
And please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you guys on LinkedIn.
Thanks, Anna Kate. Bye-bye.
Thank you.